While there's so much growth and positive change, we are not perfect as a community, and there's more work to be done. I am extremely grateful for the recent freedoms and protections politically for our community, but I'm also very aware that they can be as easily taken away. Hello and welcome to the podcast, to another episode of Queerly Overthinking. I'm your host, Adam Harper, and y'all, it is still Pride. I am still celebrating out here. It is a party all year round, but June, ooh, you know, I get so excited about it. Well, in this episode, I want to share with you about my recent experience and visit to Chicago for their Pride Festival weekend. I'm going to share with you not only my experiences being there, some reflections on the progress I feel we've made as a community, but tying it all back together on the joy that I felt in being in such a queer-friendly space. Y'all, I'm hyped about this episode, if you can't tell already. And with that, let's get into it. To kick things off, I, as mentioned, wanted to reflect on some of the personal experiences that I had while in Chicago. And I specifically want to talk about how I met somebody who this was their very first Pride. And, I can't recall specifically if they said that if they were out publicly back at home, but I met this person at a bar at the start of the Pride Festival, which, has vendors and a ton of people enjoying the all-day events. It was a really reflective moment because it reminded me of my first Pride experience back in, I think, 2018. It reminded me of how nervous and scared I was. And I know it's only been a few years, but so much has changed. And especially if you listen to the last episode, yeah, a lot has changed. It was amazing to meet someone who was brave enough to share with me that this was their first experience at Pride, and being in that environment with them and sharing that space and that moment was impactful. It reminded me to not take for granted the ability to celebrate who I am publicly. It was a mix of emotions, mainly positive, but, reflective, humbling, and appreciative. Another experience that I want to share with you was while I was on the train. I observed a public display of affection between an LGBT couple. And it was, a couple short, sweet little quick kisses, but I felt it was significant. Seeing that level of comfort in what I would consider to be a non-designated safe space for queer people was both shocking and awe-inspiring in the best way. It reminded me to really appreciate the progress that we've made, especially in a more, I would say, politically blue, progressive city like Chicago, but also being aware of the challenges that still exist, especially in less accepting areas. PDA is always something that I've paused to consider before deciding to either go through with it or not, especially in parts of the country that might not be as accepting. Seeing that couple, though, freely express their love and emotion for each other was genuinely enlightening and inspiring to me, because it really gave me the courage to be more open about how I express myself outside of designated safe spaces. You may or may not have heard me use this term before, but I love using the term gay heavens to describe spaces that go beyond the safety of designated queer areas like a gay bar, for example. In these places, I feel like I can walk the streets and feel a sense of safety and just express myself openly, specifically in what I wear or who I'm with. Chicago was incredible in this sense. There were so many rainbow flags everywhere. There were rainbow sidewalks, specifically in the boys' town of it's their neighborhood. So Dallas has Oak Lawn, Chicago has Boys Town, San Francisco has the Castro. So in each of these places, there tends to be these visual representations of the community more prominently displayed, again, such as rainbow sidewalks. And in Chicago, I think this was my first time seeing a transgender sidewalk for the first time, which was so cool to see. What I do find irritating, though, sometimes is that some may argue about the necessity of colorful sidewalks, but I personally find them meaningful. I feel like they are a visual representation of a safe and inclusive environment, or at least like the promotion of that, the desire to have this be an inclusive environment. I know I've touched on this before in a previous episode about the feeling of being able to visit a large city, predominantly maybe more blue city politically, where it feels like I can let go and just be myself more freely in public, experience that, again, quote unquote, gay heaven, like just rainbows everywhere and queer people everywhere, or at least presumably, in contrast with the queer spaces that we have here in Dallas, and also just the environment living in a more purple/red political leaning state. It's really interesting to experience that contrast. I've even talked about contrast in other episodes too, where I appreciate that there is a delineation where I can see the experiences that I have in both areas. It really begins to reinforce my appreciation for these spaces that I can be more expressive in who I am without the fear of shame or guilt or safety. One other thing I wanted to mention is that this specifically really stood out to me was my first time ever going to a live watch party of RuPaul's Drag Race at a gay bar. I went to Roscoe's in Boys Town in Chicago, and oh my gosh, y'all, it was so much fun. Drag queens hosted the event, and there was a lot of us actually that like we all watched the episode together, and they were taking questions and we were like having commentary during the episode, and we would pause it every once in a while to like have that commentary and discussion. The collective excitement and reactions from the crowd kind of reminded me of a sports bar during like a big game, just when the team scores a point or a touchdown or anything like that, just the excitement and the thrill of just everybody like, oh my gosh, like the cheering and everything. It was so crazy to experience that for like the first time, and something that like I was genuinely like so invested in, because like I do love watching Drag Race and I love like the competition and everything. And so it was really fun to just like collectively hear all the cheers and the gasps and the everything in between. And like I said, it was like being in gay heaven, surrounded by so many queer people or queer and allies, who shared in the same enthusiasm for the show. And although I love watching at home with my surround system and subtitles being turned on, because let me tell you, sometimes things get a little bit loud and I can't always hear things. And so it's like, I appreciated that they actually did have subtitles turned on. But I will say that, again, this was such an unforgettable experience. I really am considering doing it more often, just because of that sense of community and collective togetherness while participating in something that everyone is so excited for and enjoying in this moment together. Overall, and thinking about Pride in general as June starts to wrap up, I'm immensely grateful for the progress that has been made in the LGBTQ plus community. However, I recognize that it often feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I also still see that there's division within our community based on different preferences, music choices, and ways that we celebrate Pride. While there's so much growth and positive change, we are not perfect as a community, and there's more work to be done. I am extremely grateful for the recent freedoms and protections politically for our community, but I'm also very aware that they can be as easily taken away. In this time of my life, I really hope that this community can come together, and I've grown so passionate about this community, and I've appreciated so much the efforts, the sacrifices, and the pushes for progress that we've made. Personally, the growth that I've seen in myself over the past few years has been wild. If you had told me a few years ago I would be where I am today, I would not have believed it. And I know people say that all the time, but genuinely, I don't know if I would have believed it. I am so grateful to be part of something bigger than myself, and to feel like with each day I can be more open to express myself and to experience pride with the people that I care about, both locally and around the country and around the world. All this to say, folks, I am just very grateful for the opportunity to be able to share pride with you and to share pride with this community, and to feel like there's something to continue to strive for. There's something to continue to reach for, but also super reflective on where we've been. To wrap things up, I wanted to share a quote from Tammy Baldwin. In 2013, Tammy Baldwin made history by becoming the first openly gay senator in the United States. And in her speech at the Millennium March for Equality, she said, "There will not be a magic day when we wake up and it's now okay to express ourselves publicly. We make that day by doing things publicly until it's simply the way things are." Well, y'all, I think that's about a wrap on Pride 2024, if I do say so myself. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and for celebrating with me, and for just, I really wanted to do a very reflective and just meaningful episode for me to kind of think back on what it's like to be in these spaces and to feel like I can express myself. I can show public displays of affection. I can walk down the street in all rainbow garb and just enjoy life, you know? So thank you for being on this journey with me as I kind of unpacked all of that, overthought all of that, everything under the sun. And I want to know, did you do anything fun for Pride? Feel free to share your own experiences with me on the social post for this episode today. I would absolutely love to hear what y'all been up to. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I would absolutely love it if you shared it with a friend, share it with someone you care about, and give it a follow, give it a subscribe, give it a little rating. You know what to do. Stay tuned for more episodes coming soon every other week. And until next time, y'all, be proud of who you are and keep on celebrating Pride. Even though June is wrapping up, Pride is all year round. Never forget that. Hope y'all have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Queerly Overthinking is hosted, edited, and executive produced by Adam Harper, with additional producing by Cass Cooper. You can follow Queerly Overthinking on Instagram or TikTok at Queerly Overthinking, and you can find more at www.queerlyoverthinking.com.